Story recapped here. Today, I'm going to explain a horror and thriller film called Demons Never Die. Spoilers ahead, watch out and take care. One late night, Amber scribbles murder on her notebook and then looks at a photo of her boyfriend. Afterward, she tries to call him but he doesn't answer, so she ends up crying. When her father sees her crying, he insists on making a meal for Amber so they can talk. However, Amber wanted to confess that she aborted her baby, though she couldn't. But soon enough, Amber's boyfriend calls her, saying that they can get through their problems together. Now happy, Amber goes into her room, but when her father checks inside, she's already dead while holding a knife. The next day, their college gets the news of Amber's passing, so a local officer, Bates, is there to speak about it, reminding the youth of available help if they need it. Furthermore, he reminds everyone not to follow in Amber's footsteps. Meanwhile, a particular group of friends is the exact target audience of Bates' speech. A group of college students that seem to live less than pleasant lives. Archie, Ashley, Kane, Jasmine, Kenny, Ricky, Samantha, and James. When Archie gets home, he joins a group video call with the rest of his friends, where Kenny is going on a rant about Amber's death and how they should do it, because they're a group who all wants to leave the existing world. But out of everyone, Kenny is the most passionate about it. He even wants to make a bang about their deaths, wanting to go out in a way that the world will remember. Meanwhile, James is just busy with his homework. Though, when Jenny berates James, Jasmine comes to his rescue. Amidst all the commotion, Samantha speaks up and scolds them for being so apathetic when one of their friends just died. But at the end of the night, they all agree on a pact to go out together. So Kenny plans to do it during Ashley's party, with the plan getting finalized upon Archie's agreement. That night, when Archie's asleep, he gets a nightmare about a tragic incident in his life. The next day, the group meets up for their plan, where Kenny immediately documents what's happening. Afterward, they argue about how they should all take their lives. Upon further argument, Kenny throws racial insults towards Kane and Ashley. Furthermore, Kenny doesn't want to go out by just ingesting pills, because he wants to go out in style, even though the rest of the group wants to keep it simple. But since nobody else wants to do it Kenny's way, he begrudgingly agrees. After class, Archie and Jasmine walk home together, where Jasmine asks Archie what he wants to do before he dies. When Archie answers the lottery, Jasmine pushes the topic to a more romantic one. So, Archie confesses that he wants to ask her out. However, when he tries to kiss her without even asking her on a date, Jasmine evades him and walks away. When Jasmine walks out to the street, she almost gets hit by a van, making the driver get off to berate her for being reckless. But when he pushes Jasmine, Archie suddenly appears and tries to fight the driver. Upon some stranger's interference, the fight breaks off and Jasmine calms Archie down. After thinking the gesture was romantic, Jasmine asks Archie out later tonight. On the other hand, Samantha goes to work at night as an explicit model, but she's clearly tired of her life. She even takes upon Kenny's ways of documenting a life diary until her death. After confessing her eating disorder and apologizing to her loved ones, Samantha doesn't think she'll be able to stick out with the group's plan of taking their own lives. Then, all of a sudden, a masked killer appears from behind her and stabs her repeatedly before taking the video camera. Meanwhile, Archie and Jasmine meet up for their date. There, they just end up learning bits about each other, more so about how Jasmine doesn't drink nor has she ever slept with anyone, much to Archie's surprise. But they aren't the only ones busy tonight, because Kenny, alongside some other pal, Davey, waits around Ashley's home until she leaves, so they can sneak inside and install cameras for his master plan. Back at the couple, Archie and Jasmine start talking about each other's family, so Archie takes Jasmine home to meet his grandmother. All the while, police officers Bates and his partner, Mason, arrive at the crime scene. However, they think that Samantha took her own life. Further into the night, Archie and Jasmine end up sleeping together. The next morning, Jasmine looks through Archie's drawer and accidentally cuts herself with Archie's hunting knife that he hides in there. But even when Archie seems infatuated with Jasmine, she doesn't actually reciprocate his sentiment about having a committed relationship, because Jasmine thinks their relationship isn't going anywhere, especially because of their group's pact to take their own lives. Although Archie still has some space in his mind to reconsider things about life, Jasmine's mind is already made up, especially because she's tired of her family situation. It turns out her mother went crazy, hence why her father left, and sometimes Jasmine thinks she might be going crazy too. So the two split off to cry between themselves about their argument. At the college, after class, Archie's professor, Mr. Hudson, sets him aside to show his concern about Archie's well-being, but Archie is dismissive about it. So, Mr. Hudson gets comforted by another professor, saying that he did everything he could with Amber. While walking away, Kenny stops Archie to tell him the news about Samantha, so the group reconvenes for another meeting. Meanwhile, Ashley, Ricky, Kane, and James walk together to talk about Samantha and their own lives. But when they come across the police officers, Mason and Bates, Ashley stops the two to invite them to her party. On the other hand, Jasmine plays guitar in the music room alone when she suddenly starts hearing things. When she stands up to check it out, Jasmine comes face to face with the masked killer. Right away, Jasmine runs for her life but is trapped inside the room. Just when she's about to get stabbed, Jasmine manages to kick herself free and lock herself inside the recording booth. She's able to call the police, making the assailant run away. Suddenly, Archie arrives to comfort her. When the police arrive, Mason pulls Archie aside for a witness statement. But because Archie didn't see the attacker, the police assumes that Jasmine might have had a psychosis episode and was just seeing things, especially because of her family history. Right away, this angers Archie and takes Jasmine's side. However, Mr. Hudson points out that Jasmine's mother's condition is hereditary. Furthermore, they mention that there didn't look like any sign of a struggle and Jasmine's bruises looked like possible self-infliction. Because of this, Archie just walks away. When he does, he encounters Kenny once more, who's currently filming with Davy, and tells him about Jasmine. However, instead of being concerned about their friend's well-being, Kenny is more worried about the spotlight getting stolen from them. Furthermore, he introduces Davy as the guy that'll oversee their promotion when they go out in style. Immediately, Archie is unsupportive about the idea and walks out from them. That night, the masked assailant is hiding in his base and gets ready to go out for another night of stabbing. Meanwhile, Jasmine tries recuperating from the day's experience, but even her family members are reluctant to believe her story. Suddenly, a hooded figure sneaks inside Jasmine's room, making her scream in terror. But it turns out to just be Archie. Ashley, Kane, Ricky, and James happily hang out again. On the other hand, Kenny is still obsessed with making a video for his master plan for Ashley's party. It turns out he plans to shoot everyone at the party so he could go down in history. Despite the red flags, Davy just goes along with what Kenny says because he's holding a gun. On the other hand, the 4 pals start talking about Jasmine's case, wondering who could have done it. While James thinks it could have been Archie, Kane and Ricky think it could be Kenny. When Ashley mentions that it doesn't matter because they're all taking their lives anyway, Kane is the first to break the sudden silence, expressing second thoughts. It turns out they all realize that they might still have something to live for. Instead of overthinking it, the group just ends up ingesting drugs instead. Later on, they finally decide that they want to keep living, not knowing that Kenny plans to kill everyone anyway. Still, that doesn't stop the group from starting to take charge of their own lives and looking forward to a better tomorrow. Apparent in how nobody showed up in their group meeting with Kenny. Meanwhile, when James starts getting bullied, Kane and Ricky immediately come to his aid, alongside Archie. James pulls out a knife, but because he's too scared to use it, Archie takes it from his hand to scare away the bullies. Despite the incident, everyone was happy to stick up for one another. However, Kenny is mad that everyone backed out from their pact. Before parting, Archie warns Kenny, suspecting him of possibly attacking Jasmine. On the other hand, Mr. Hudson is drinking in his office when he suddenly finds a mysterious envelope amidst his belongings. So he immediately calls someone on his phone and tells them that he doesn't want to be a part of their shtick anymore. As the group, minus Ashley, talk amongst themselves, Archie warns them about Kenny because he's a loose cannon. Furthermore, they find themselves unable to report Kenny to the police because they all used to be in a pact. Aside from that, Archie finds it hard to trust the police after they don't believe Jasmine the first time. So, Archie says that they should just go to the party and enjoy the fact that they'll keep on living. But Jasmine makes an offhand comment about killing Kenny instead. That night, in Mr. Hudson's home, he finds his wife dead in their bed, followed by him as the assailant stabs him from behind. The next day, Mason and Bates finally take Jasmine's case seriously, but Mason provides another hypothesis that Jasmine might have done it to prove her credibility. On the other hand, Ricky now thinks that perhaps it's really Archie who's making the killings. All the while, Kane becomes suspicious of James for having a knife. Meanwhile, Ashley and James also talk about who might have done it, still not ruling out their suspicions about Archie. Despite everything that's going on, Kenny still intends to continue his plan at Ashley's upcoming party. That night, while Ricky is smoking alone, he hears a woman crying. Immediately, he gets defensive and starts rushing in with a bottle to protect him. However, the masked killer immediately gets to him and slits his throat, this time making sure to film his body. While that is going on, everyone else is getting ready for Ashley's party, hoping that it'll be nothing else but a night of fun. Meanwhile, Archie takes an added layer of protection by bringing his hunting knife with him. On the other hand, the police park in front of the house to watch the party over. Soon, they exit the car to split up and look around for possible suspects. Just then, Kenny arrives with Davy, ready to raise hell. Meanwhile, while the party is ongoing, one of the students gets stabbed by the masked killer while making out with a girl. Outside, Davy is busy filming Kenny, who's currently introducing his plan to kill everyone at the party. However, one of the officers immediately tackles him to the ground and cuffs his hand while Davy runs away. With Kenny apprehended, the rest of the friends continue to have fun, still unaware of the impending doom they'll face soon. James is even separated from the rest of the group because he's busy getting some action. Meanwhile, the cops are taking in Kenny when they suddenly make a pit stop so Bates can pee. As they're left in the car, Mason picks up one of Davy's equipment with a screen that shows live footage of whoever's holding the camera. Meanwhile, Archie and Jasmine have another talk about their relationship, and this time, Jasmine reciprocates his feelings. Moments later, Jasmine excuses herself to go to the toilet. All the while, James, who's busy eating in the kitchen, gets attacked by the masked killer. Because of the ongoing party, nobody notices until Ashley goes into the kitchen for a drink and catches the murderer in the act. Right away, she runs outside while screaming for help but is eventually caught. Inside the party, all the lights go out, so everyone starts leaving. Since Kane is left alone, he starts looking for everybody else. With things now taking a sudden turn for the worse, Archie goes inside to check on Jasmine, thankfully finding her safe. So they decide to just leave, but before doing so, they find Davy's recording equipment and start using the night vision camera. Because of this, they see James's body in the kitchen. Furthermore, they hear someone inside the house with them. To increase their chances of survival, Archie plans to go first so that Jasmine can make a run for it. But before he can make a turn, his night vision camera dies. Left alone, Jasmine takes a knife for protection. But as she goes further, she finds Kane's body on the floor. When she comes across Davy, he warns her that there's someone behind her. Outside, Jasmine's knife is all bloody along with her sides when she comes across Bates outside, who checks on her. When she tells him that everyone's dead, Bates tells Jasmine to wait outside while he checks the house where Davy is now dead. Inside, Archie's also on the floor with the camera pointed at him. All the while, Jasmine picks up a screen where she can see the live footage of Archie. When Jasmine walks closer to the police car, she sees Mason and Kenny dead inside, only to find out that Bates has been the masked killer all along. While Jasmine gets pursued by Bates, Archie turns out to still be alive and gets up after having a flashback of the night his mother died. Earlier on, before they parted, Archie proposed a plan to play dead in order to bait the killer. So, while Jasmine is outside, Archie runs to tackle Bates. Although the tables turn against him, Jasmine doesn't hesitate to shoot the killer and finally end the horrors of the night, with her and Archie being the only survivors. However, Bates isn't actually dead yet.
Subscribe to watch more videos like this. Turn on notifications. And leave a like, it really helps the channel out. Thank you for watching.